Assalamu alaikum everyone. So today, Arabic and Quran workshop. We will be going through a lot of theory, which is all in this paper. So if you in the folders, there are two sets of papers. The first one is all the information that that you need for the memory related and the more theoretical issues. And the second set, which is in a plastic sleeve, that's all of the vocab for Arabic, which you're going to be taking home and making use of. So this is just for your information. So there's going to be a lot of theory and a lot of new terminologies that you may not be aware of. So to make life easier, I've just put it all in writing, so you don't have to do too much scribbling around when we are going through the presentation. Yes, Walid. Bring back some memories. Okay, so we'll start with some introductory remarks about what's the purpose behind this workshop, and then we look at the types of memory, because most of Quran and Arabic relates to memory and how we learn. So we'll divide that into working and short-term and long-term memory. Then we're going to look at our approach to Arabic. So if you just take a seat down there. Yeah, hard by this one of these folded ones. So we're going to quickly discuss how we teach Arabic at the Growery and how you can help at home as well. I know a lot of parents have been asking for this. And then Imam Uthman, who's going to be here shortly, he will be going through the last 2 points, which is tarbiyah of our children, because Quran memorization in Arabic can't be the only purpose. Through the Quran, how can we instill tarbiyah of our children through the guidance of the Quran? And then he'll go through some practical memorization tips and what kind of things you need to be aware of going forward in your child's Quran learning journey. So firstly, start off with introductory remarks. I've just said previously, this sheet of paper that's been there, or the whole booklet that's been given, that's just to help you along the way, because there's going to be a lot of new terminology and a lot of research that are presented here. So only thing I want you guys to do with this is make notes on how you are applying these factors of memory in your own child's learning, or how you could possibly doing something against it. For example, if you talk about a certain technique, think about it. Oh, does my environment actually match what's the research say about how memory works? If you think, oh, maybe I should change it, just make a note. My house is usually too loud. Let's make a quieter place for children to learn, for example. That's all you have to do in the margins. Other than that, most of the information I'll be presenting will be present in this booklet as well. Secondly, there will be some quick tasks for you guys to do as we go along as well. That will all be present here. Right, memory. So memory usually is divided into 3 separate parts. 2 of them kind of work together and 1 is completely separate. So short-term and working memory, they work together, and then long-term memory is something completely different, different functions and different purposes. Short-term memory, for example, we take this table. It defines how much space we have currently for processing things that are coming in at the moment. So if someone keeps on bringing in stuff, there's only so much space in this table that I can fit in. So if they bring in a box, I put it here. Another one brings in another box, I put it here. The 4th or 5th box, there's no space anymore. I have to rejig this, whatever I have here, to make space in order for another box to be placed on top. Right? So short-term memory defines how much things that we can actually keep in our memory as it's coming in. And working memory defines how do we organize this information as they're coming in. Someone brings in a yellow box, I decide to put it here. Someone brings a blue one, I decide to put it here. So that's what the working memory does. The long-term memory, however, takes all of the information that's present here and stores it away in the cupboards behind you. It's completely separate functions to short-term and working memory. Yeah, that's true. Okay, So initially we'll talk about how the short-term memory works and how we can help with managing our short-term memory or our working memory. Then we'll move on to our long-term memory, how we can manage that. Before we go on with actually talk about the working memory, born with good memory. Who here is born with good memory? Anyone think that? Yeah, my memory is solid. Go on, Walid.
No,
No.
my wife thinks that, but I don't.
Anyone?
I'm good at memory like numbers.
Memory with numbers?
Yeah.
Okay. What about other things?
I remember number plates.
Number plates. Why?
I don't know.
Who do number
The last 3
plates?
letters of somebody's number plate.
Do you know why?
Probably.
Probably. Can I have a guess?
I don't remember.
Okay.
See, I told you my memory's not good.
Who thinks that we actually innately born with? Now it's not about you. What you actually think happens? Like people are born with good memory, or they're not.
They're not.
They're not.
Well, they have potential to train memory to become very good. I don't think you're born with.
So everyone here has the potential to have good memory.
Yes,
Yes.
you can train.
You can train it. This guy over here, Rajan Mahadevan, someone from India. He can correctly retrieve a staggering 31,000 odd numbers from pi. How about him? Born with good memory? What do you think? Yeah, born with good memory. Jawad, this many numbers?
Maybe about 7.
Maybe about 7.
It's training. So we get students in our school to memorize digits of pi, and we have some students that learn over 1,000 digits within a matter of a few weeks or something.
Okay.
They use different techniques.
Okay, good. So, given a random set of numbers, he's able to memorize up to 63 randomly presented numbers. Not from pi. Pi is a sequence, whereas random. So they're just going to throw numbers, and he has to memorize it within a small amount of time. He can memorize 63 numbers. Keep that in mind. But they did another test now. Instead of numbers, they gave him symbols. The @ sign, the $sign, the slash, and they asked him to memorize. Memorize all of this. How many series of symbols do you think he memorized?
15.
15? Someone else?
Less than the digits, I would say.
Less than 63. That's not a great guess.
Well, making comparison.
How about
30.
35.
30?
5.
5. 6. He was only able to recall 6 digits. That's it. And that correlates to working memory. Remember our analogy of the short-term memory and working memory? We can only put 6 different items on our table, on our working memory. 4 to 6, roughly. Right? We can put about 4 to 6. We can roughly put about 4 to 6. So he's bang on average in terms of his raw memory power. But through training, so mnemonic training, he's able to memorize digits, a lot more 63 to symbols, 6, which anyone else can do as well. Then they did another research of a average student who can only memorize, I think it was four digits. And they trained him for 2 years on mnemonic techniques. How many digits can he memorize? Randomly selected digits by end of those 2 years. Any guesses? More or less than him?
More.
More or less than him?
Less.
More?
Less.
More?
Less.
Less? 80. Ooh, it is going through. 80 digits he can recall. By the end of the 2 years, he was able to go from 4 to 80. He used a technique called chunking, which we'll come to a bit later on. He's a runner, by the way. Just keep that in mind when we go forward. So, yeah.
When you say mnemonic, what do you mean by that?
Good question. Mnemonic techniques are memory technique that people use to recall things. So, for example, they picture they create a palace in their mind. So, instead number 1 will have a certain item. For Apple, for example. Number 2 will be a folder. So he's walking into a room. So he's imagining this. He's walking into a room. He sees an apple on top of a folder, which is on a desk. So it's 1, 2, 3. That's how he records numbers. Right, so 10 numbers, 10 different things, and then they're able to do that, manipulating their minds. So you're able to think through, your spatial awareness is much greater than the amount of numbers that you can store in your mind as an individual concept. Okay, so firstly I want to know that everyone here, because we're talking about Quran and Arabic, people usually, biggest complaint that they have is, I can't memorize the Quran. Why? I have a bad memory. But this just goes to show that you do not have bad memory. What do you lack? Training. That's all it is. It's all about training. I started my Quran memorization when I was 18, 19. I didn't know Juzama when I was 18. Abdullah, who's 6, knows more than me. By the time I was 18, 19. But by just doing the work, I thought, if you asked me when I was 17, do I have bad memory? Guaranteed, yes. I got bad grades in school, I can't do anything with my exams, obviously I have a bad memory. But if you ask anyone that doesn't know me from before, oh, Ashfaq, yeah, he has a brilliant memory, he memorized the Quran. But that's not the case. It's just I have average memory, I just trained it to memorize the Quran. Same with Saad, who's almost finished his Quran as well. Anyone you speak to, you just about training, and that what gets you to memorize the Quran. So even for you, that's just for your children to keep that in mind. If they're struggling, always remember that they just need training and nothing else. Don't talk about how bad their memory. Oh, no. Sumaya can't do it because she has a bad memory. Oh, Ibrahim can't do it because he has a bad memory. That's not the case. They can do it. You just have to be persistent in the training of their memory. Okay, what impacts working memory? Working memory is not long-term memory. It's what we can juggle in our minds at a set time. So if you can ease the pressure on working memory, we will be able to process things a lot better and learn better in that respect as well. Some of these things does not only apply to Quran or Arabic, even though my examples I'll be giving out would be related to Quran and Arabic, but you could think about maths or reading or any other subject that you will be teaching your children. Remember, we need to know the theory behind all of these memory-related issues because we are co-teachers. I can just give you a list of things that you should be doing, but that won't be impactful. If you're just a parent who just want to help your children on the side, that would be useful. But you guys are co-teachers. You can't just know the whats and the hows. You need to know the whys as well. What impacts working memory? Phonological loop. So the first one is there's a stream of sounds that comes to your memory. So like the boxes, there's streams of sounds that come to your memory, which you need to kind of work at it. You need to organize it, think through what this means, and how the next one means something, and the next one means something. That's how we create meaning. So the words come in a certain order, and your brain has to physically put them in because, for example, if I say, he is walking, versus, is he walking? Your brain has to take all of that chunk and think whether this is a question, this is a statement, what's he trying to say? Is it sarcastic? All of this information has to be processed instantaneously by working memory. Phonological loop can be easily interrupted through other sounds that are coming in. So if I'm having a conversation with you guys and someone else is saying something, Mohsin shouts something, that's going to interrupt my thought process and I want to misspeak something because I heard something. For example, you're trying to memorize a phone number. You say 7824 and someone else says 982 and you just get confused. So that's the phonological interruption that takes place. So how does this impact our learning? So when our child is trying to learn something or read something, what kind of environment do I need to place them in? If the TV is running, I will come to that with the visual spatial one as well. But if someone's speaking in the background, someone's having a phone conversation and your child is reading, what's going to be happening? His processing power is going to be largely reduced. Therefore, quiet environments is must for actually making good use of your memory. Subvocalization, this is what I talked about, quiet place. The next one is production effect. They did a study of 3 sets of students. One set of students were asked to memorize numbers silently. The other one, memorize, I think it's words or numbers, I can't remember. Words or numbers out loud, so saying it out loud and memorizing like how we do with Quran. The other one, they have to memorize through listening to someone else. They found that the second group who read out loud did far better, 20 to 30% better than the one who did silently or listened to someone else. This is because our phonological loop, due to hearing our own voice, it's only not only are we in our mental state, we're saying, for example, I want to go to the shop. I want to memorize that sentence. I want to go to the shop is first in our mind, then we say it, and it goes back in a loop. So it's almost like hearing it twice over. When you hear it from someone else, even though you're hearing it once, you're not regurgitating in your own working memory. So that's why they found that saying things out loud, production effect, is actually useful for memorization. So if your kid is trying to memorize something, make sure you say it out loud and not quietly, especially for Arabic vocab, which they can just look at it and say, oh, father, mother, in their own mind and just go through the list. That's not as effective as them actually saying it out loud, father, mother, or walid, walida, etc., etc. So even in Arabic memorization, make sure when they're saying the words, they're saying it out loud. And it has also the added benefit of creating muscle memory for Arabic words as well. Next, visual spatial sketchpad. So our second factor that impacts memory, working memory, is what we see, the visual input that we get in. I want everyone to try this task. So you have the one unfolded version of this. Fold it in your mind and see which one of these boxes would not be possible with this set of symbols. So you have to fold it and then rotate it around. Done?
Third one can be done, the other two can't.
Which one can't be?
The first, second, and the last one
Can't be done. Or can be done.
can't be done. Oh no, maybe.
All can be done apart from the last.
All can be done apart from the last.
The last one,
Huh?
They all can be done, they are just rotated around.
Is it possible?
the last one can't be done.
Last one can't be done. Interesting.
The last one can't be done.
Yeah. So, why? Jawad?
Because the crown's on the side. on the
Oh,
right
before
side.
you do it, how did you do it?
I just pictured it in my mind.
How? Walk through the steps.
So I visualized the box being turned
Yeah.
and made into a box, and
Yeah.
I can see the sides and I can sort of rotate it in my head.
For you did that for each one?
Yeah, I have to look at it for each one and then compare it.
Okay, good, right? So two ways you could have done it. Jawad's answer is correct. Yeah, the last one can't be done, right? The rest of them can. So you can do two different ways. As the visual stimuli is coming into you, so you got this, and you mentally manipulate it. When Jawad is doing this, I could speak to him, because more than likely, if I had spoken to him while he's trying to concentrate and do this, he would not be able to hear me properly, because whole of his attention is focused on the visual aspects of it. So the working memory has taken all of the visual elements, and there's not enough room for the phonological, so it just passes straight through. This is quite important as well. Why? What happens if the TV is playing and you call Ahmed? Is he hearing anything? No. So another thing you should be wary of is what kind of visual stimuli that they have in their surrounding environment when they're learning, especially if they're memorizing Quran. Because if they are in a room where the TV is playing, or there's too much visual stimuli, their memory is going to be hampered significantly. So we need to minimize that as much as possible. Getting a blank, plain room, imagine you have a white room, there's nothing else, maybe a carpet, plain carpet, and they sit down and memorize in that room, they'll probably memorize about 30 to 40% faster than they would in this room, for example, because there's far too many visual stimuli. If you could Google, I wanted to put that picture up, but I forgot. If you look at those world memory competitions, Have you ever anyone seen that? When they memorize lots of digits. Search up World Memory Competition. What they'll wear is headphones, soundproof headphones, and like goggles which has 2 small holes, where they can only see the text on the page, because that will help them memorize a lot faster than they would with a open environment like this, where there's too much phonological as well as visual stimuli that's taking place. The last person that we need to discuss is the central executive, which is basically us. We got all sorts of things coming in. We need to decide which one we're taking in. And we can only take in 4 to 7 things at one go. And the rest of it has to be left behind. So if the central executive has to multitask, everything's going to fall apart. Because imagine you have lots of phonological input coming in, as well as visual input. It's very, very difficult for them. On top of that, you have to do, making even worse, the content of what you're studying. If you're studying maths and English, and then going back to maths and then going back to English, or having both at the same time, which is even worse. We'll do a activity on that a bit later to explain how the split attention actually detrimentally affects us in terms of our learning. But that will come to after we do some work on chunking. So, as we said, if we are so bound by only 4 to 7 items in our working memory, how are we ever to learn anything complex that requires more than 4 to 7 items? One of the ways that we learn faster and better, things that we already know, is through the process of chunking. For example, if I was giving a maths formula, Saad will be able to keep more of those bits in his mind than I would. If I were to give my wife the same maths formula, even though she got an A in apparently, which I still don't believe,
A star.
she will not be able to do it because she has to figure out each part distinctively as separate things. Saad will see the formula, let's say, I didn't write that, it's already there, behind us. He'll see that as one thing. So 2x plus y equals 10. That's not 2 and x and plus and y equals 10. He'll see that as one chunk. So we can actually train ourselves to put 3 or 4 different things into one box. So instead of having 6 items, we just have 1 item. For let's try this. You got 5 seconds to memorize as many letters of this word as possible. Saad and Mohsin, you can't join in this one, because they already seen it. 4, 3. Anyone? Letters. L-A-O, 3. M-S-A-N.
That's right.
I said J.
Is it in front of you?
Yeah, see.
Go on, what's that again?
L-A-O.
L-A-O.
I've forgotten now.
I say it.
Yeah.
A-A-O-I-C.
L-A-O-I-C.
M-J-S-A-N.
N-J.
It's J-N.
J-M.
Oh.
J-N.
S-A-N.
I think you gave more than 5 seconds.
I think I did give more than 5 seconds. But how about this? If I give 3 seconds,
Oh, that's easy.
Easy,
Jumps on.
what was the second one a lot easier than the first one? It's put together because it's the same letters, but it's organized into one chunk, or maximum 2. You might think jam, sonical, 2 things, rather than a long string which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items. We have 2 items now. So that's how chunking works. So we need to try as much as possible to be able to put things together for our kids that they form chunks rather than individual items. So how can we chunk better? Organizing. In our Arabic vocab list, it's organized into different themes. If they were given a set of vocabulary which is unorganized and they're asked to memorize, it'll take them a lot longer than giving it an organized set of vocabulary. They did an experiment where they asked one set of students to memorize 10 to 15 words. The other set, they asked, you're not memorizing it, you're just organizing it into different categories. And the other one, they had to study it. They had to study regarding each one of the different items. What they found is that the difference between the organizing category and the memorizing category were marginal. So people who intentionally tried to memorize that set of words, they didn't do much better than they weren't even trying to memorize it. All they did was organizing that content. Just through the process of organizing, they ended up memorizing the content. They understood and learned the content a lot better. So we need to think about ways in which we can make the learning for our kids organized and ordered, so that when it comes to learning, or ask them, what is the organizational structure? That will help them. So if they memorize a new let's say, a surah, ask them, what are the different topics that are taking place? Let them think about it. Let them visualize. For example, if they're doing feel, let them visualize the elephants coming in. Let them visualize the birds. Because that's organizing the content in their mind. So it's just like this, having a room like this, and all you're asked to do is organize it. You chunked it, now it's like this. So you make sure our minds are not, the first one is closer to the second one. Next, pre-training. Pre-training is when you have a complex subject that you need to study. So imagine you have an ayah which is about 2.5 lines. All you have to do is break it up into 3 or 4 different parts. And you study each part and then put them together afterwards. Because if you try to do the whole thing, by the time you get to the end of the ayah, you've forgotten the beginning. So you need to make sure that you break down work for your children. This applies more to things like maths and maybe English as well, where they're given a, let's say, 64 plus 73 minus 82. They have to figure that out. If they look at that just by itself, it's too much for them to process. You just have to break it up. Okay, 64 plus 82. Okay, let's take the 60 and the 80 first. Can we do that first? Okay, let's do the next step. The 2 and the 4. Okay, let's add that together, and then the next step, next step. More of this will be coming in our next workshop anyway, for mathematical reasoning. But with pre-training, it's very, very important that we think about how we can break it down into smaller bits, so that it's not a whole string of information. It's small information that they can process. When they store it away in their long-term memory, we can bring in another one, process it. So it's the longer string is broken down into small pieces, stored in long-term memory. So when it's retrieved from the long-term memory, it comes back as one chunk rather than 6 different items. Next, we're going to talk about intrinsic and extrinsic load. Right. I've got this task over here. People on the left do the left equation, people on the right do the right equation. Let's see A star. Your own one will eat.
Oh, right.
Right, 10 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Who was doing this one? How did you find it? Easy. Who was doing this one? Walid?
It was, but it was giving me palpitations for my GCSE maths.
Sumra, how did you find this?
None of it.
None of it? What's the difference between the two, sir?
Well, F1 is easier, isn't it?
Why?
Because it's been organized for you. But then the second one, you have to put numbers in yourself.
So is the question intrinsically difficult? The two questions? Or are they exactly the same question?
It's the exact same question.
Exact same question. So both are exactly the same question. Why did we find the second one a lot more difficult than the first?
Seems like there's a lot of information.
Look, there's all the information there as well. It's a layout. That's all it is. It's only the layout. Sometimes the work is actually quite easy, but we as parents will make it more difficult for the child by complicating the issue. That's extrinsic load. There's two components, intrinsic. Sometimes you have to do a physics equation, you just don't understand it. That's intrinsically, the subject is difficult. But most of what our children are going to be studying at the early stages, there's not going to be any intrinsic difficulty. Only thing you have to be concerned about is extrinsic load. We do not want to put any extra difficulty when there exists none. When there's no actual difficulty, we can make the work more difficult than it needs to be for our children. So we really need to think about how we are presenting certain information to our children. For example, they're doing, let's say, Arabic vocabulary. And you kind of, let's see, I'm just trying to complicate an easy task. They have to memorize the word walid. Instead of just asking, what does walid mean? You string a whole sentence together. Do you know the person who you were born from? You know that one who's your grandfather's son? And that person, what is that word in Arabic? You're complicating more than you need to. Keep things simple and always think about how you're presenting the task and think about, is it extrinsic load or intrinsic load that's being impacting their learning. So always, when you give an explanation to your children, keep it simple, straightforward, no complications. Next, this is a big. Anxiety and working memory. So back to our table. We have table 4 to 6 items that we can put in there, and imagine a visual stimuli is coming in, and I put it on the table. And another visual stimuli, but I can't seem to be putting it on the table. It's like when you read a text, you read the start, come to the end of the paragraph, you don't know what you just read. What's going on there? One of the issues could be that the rest of the 4 to 5 spaces in your short-term memory is taken up by anxiety. When you're worried about certain things. So imagine you've been told all your life, you're bad at maths. Maths is difficult. You're bad at maths, or maths is difficult. When they come to approach maths, they're coming to the table with a lot of anxiety. That's taking up a lot of the working memory, so they can't actually focus on the work at hand because they're too worried about them not being capable enough. So, it can interfere with us in 2 different ways. It can be thoughts that we have, oh, I can't do this, the internal monologue that's taking place within them. They're saying that I can't do this, which is taking up too much space. Or it could be visual thoughts of getting smacked in the face 3 days ago for getting a equation wrong, or getting Quran mistaken. She has a lot of those. Not from watching her sisters getting beaten up for their Quran memorization. So she brings that anxiety that she's seen her sister getting hit for not memorizing properly, and she'll bring it to her own children. And then that's going to impact their learning of Quran as well. They found that a lot of the anxiety that children have, especially in the early years, is learnt behavior. The details are given here. It's actually learnt behavior through vocalizations of certain phrases that we might use. For example, memorize. You're just talking, random conversation you're having with your friends, and your kids are just around, and they're saying, oh, look at this person, he memorized great Quran. We normal people, we can never memorize the Quran. Memorizing Quran is so difficult. Imagine they hear that all the time. And when they're approaching hifz, what's going to happen to them? They're already coming in with baggage thinking, memorization is hard. And that's going to put a lot of strain on their memory. So we need to ensure that what we say and how we react to certain things impacts our kids, and we need to reduce that much as possible. How can we do that? Another thing is, other things also increase anxiety. Things like sleep, diet, which we'll talk a lot more about later as well. Overcome anxiety, 2 quick fixes is your belief structure that you have. If the kid believes that he can do it, he will have less anxiety and perform better. Proven studies. Throughout loads of studies done, if the belief changes, the kid's attitude towards the learning changes and his performance changes as a result. Secondly, sub-vocalization. I'm excited. Instead of saying, when you talk about Quran is hard, learning Arabic is hard. Oh, he done it and he's so brilliant because he's such an amazing kid, that's why he's able to memorize. Whereas you have no chance of memorizing the Quran. You're a miskin kid, right? That's how we speak to our kids, which we need to stop right away. We're gonna just saying, who's excited to learn some Quran now? Just that phrase will change their mindset into learning better. So we really need to change first our belief system. That's what we started the presentation with, thinking about memory. Are we inborn with memory or is it just training? So we need to change our belief system. Then we need to convey that onto our children. If they can learn that subject is hard, they can also learn that subject is easy and then excel in that subject as a result. Right, working memory done. I've got another 7 minutes to finish the rest of it. I'll try my best. So, working memory, we process things here and we send it off to be stored in our long-term memory. Working memory only lasts a few seconds at a time. Long-term memory is where things are stored for months, years, and weeks. So we need to make sure that before storing, the encoding process is durable, that our memory can be stored away clearly in the right place and for a very, very long time. Next is the actual storage environment, how that impacts it, and we won't really speak about retrieval because if you do these two things properly, you will be able to retrieve the information that you need to have at any time. Okay, first thing, if you go to page 4, there's a box. Does anyone have pen or pencil? What I want you to do, you can work together, just draw the £5 note. How does the £5 note look like? Either side. Yeah. If you need a pen, I can give you a pen. That's the whole box is there for. Oh yeah. Everyone see the £5 note? Where does the 5 go? What pictures are there? There's a queen somewhere, yes. It's alright, it's alright. I should have made the box smaller. Never seen the £5 note. Whoa, that's detailed. Okay, let's stop in 3, 2, and 1. How many times have you guys seen the £5 note? Once? Twice? Thousands? If you had to repeat your name, how many times would you have said it? Or your phone number? Who knows their phone number, by the way? By heart.
Their own phone.
Everyone, right? Your own phone number. Yeah. How many times would you have said your phone number out loud to other people in the past 2 years? Out loud to other people? Too many times. It would be less than, I guess, seeing a £5 note, but the difference won't be that great. Why do you remember? If I had to ask you to write down your phone number, you would have done it a lot quicker than drawing the £5 note. Who struggled with the £5 note? Couldn't quite remember. Struggled. How does he money? I just a TT. Struggled? Why do you struggle with writing down the £5 note? We've seen it so many times.
Because that's something we need to pay attention to.
Okay. But
Like it's just
something that we don't pay attention to. Right? That's quite important, right? Though we see it so many different times, because we never paid attention to it, it wasn't encoded in our long-term memory properly. So just in case anyone got this close? 5. Who got actually at least the 5 correctly? Who got that wrong?
Oh, queen is
You did the ball. So one of the important concepts that we need to remember is difference between recognition and recall. If I showed you this picture, instantaneously you'll be able to recognize what this picture is. But when you have to recall, it was not possible. So when we store things in our long-term memory, we store it in two different ways. Certain things we just recognize, and other things we need to recall. So Surah Kahf, for example, most of you, if I played any part of Surah Kahf, you might be able to recognize it instantly. But if I asked you to recite it, it won't be possible. Whereas Surah Fatiha, you can recognize and recall. So there are two types of encoding that needs to take place, shallow versus deep. To ensure that we are able to recall certain things, or for our kids rather, we need to make sure that things are embedded into our memory in a lot more strategic manner than you would for recognition. Deep encoding. We already spoke about one way to encode things deeply, merely through structuring and organizing your learning. That's the first way. Meaning of content. We already saw random symbols with Rajan Mahadevan, right? Random symbols, 6. His 63-digit code that he could memorize, that had meaning to it because he did mnemonics, meaning he knew that he was going to go pick up an apple, then pick up the folder, then sit on the chair, etc., etc. So giving meaning to our content is very, very important. Also, when you memorize the Quran, making sure they need at least know some of the meaning behind it. That will help in terms of learning the Quran better. Next, this is quite interesting. They warned me not to give this example, but I'm still going to give this example. State and context dependence. I just find it fascinating. If you want to memorize something, imagine you're not a Muslim and you have a couple of beers. I know, Mohsin, you warned me. You have a couple of beers and you start memorizing for your maths exam. Would it be better for you to have a couple of beers now before the exam, or be sober before you take the exam?
Before,
Have a couple more beers before you go into the exam? Why?
anxiety, I suppose.
Yeah, that could be reason. That's one reason actually. They actually found that your chemical state that you memorize something in or you learn something in impacts when you need to recall something. So if you learn something while you're drunk, if you're drunk again, you're more likely to recall it than you would if you're sober. And that also depends on things that you do. For example, you need to return a book to the library. You have the book on your table or in your kitchen top, and you go walk past the library, you go to Chicken Cottage, buy some food, you come back to the same table and you realize, darn, I need to return my book. You didn't remember it when you were near the library, you remembered it when you came back home. You would think, oh, you went past the library, you're supposed to have remembered it then, not when you come back home. How many times does that happen to us? Right? That's because we encode our memory with our state, internal state, as well as our context that we memorize things in. So if your child is memorizing sitting on the floor, he'll be able to recall things while he's sitting on the floor again, rather than standing up. It's like people who, or if they're really always used to reading to a teacher, or they memorize on their own, perfectly fine. Really good, really strong. You were just overhearing them, no mistakes, they never had a Quran near them. Then you go in front of a teacher and they say the same thing, completely gone. That's because the state and the context. More anxiety, that plays a role, because you're in front of a teacher, your fear's there. And also the context. Imagine they're used to laying back on the sofa and then memorizing. Or they're walking around memorizing. Or they're memorizing in a loud environment. All of this plays a role in terms of how you memorize better and encode things better as well. Multiple entry points. We need to make sure that when we memorize things, that we have different ways in which the same information is recorded. So it could be auditory, you're listening to something. If you're listening and looking at the Mus'haf, that's better than just listening alone, because you have to use more of your short-term memory. if you're doing certain actions, that's why you see a lot of people memorizing, they have this movement. That's also encoded because when they're in a situation where they can sit and kind of move around, they're able to recall the information a lot better as well. So trying to get different ways to the same information through different ways. Next, I'll go through this quite quickly. By the way, we probably won't have a break. So if you want something, you just have to stand up and grab some food and items. If I finish slightly earlier, we might give a few minutes break because I know everyone has to go off as well. So keep that in mind. If you want something, you just go to the back and grab something as well. So for storage, now we've encoded it and we need to put it away into storage. There's two problems that can go wrong. One is failure of storage. It just fades away, it just disintegrates and you don't have it anymore. The other one is failure of retrieval, what we talked about earlier, about recalling information versus recognizing information, right? So if you're able to recognize something, it might still be there, but it's not strong enough to hope for retrieval, right? This one we came across in our last workshop with Mohsin Ebbinghaus. Who remembers Mr. Ebbinghaus? The forgetting curve? Yeah? That one, right? So one of the, we'll come to that in a second. So early stages, you forget very rapidly and then it kind of tapers off. So it might be the early stages, you might be able to recall something, and after that, it might be just a matter of recognition. After 2 or 3 days, if you haven't revised it. How can we combat against this forgetting curve? I'll come to this one. Main way is through spacing. I'll come to these two in a second. Main way is through spacing. Spacing is you don't learn, if you had to learn, for example, 3 hours of work, you know it's going to take you 3 hours to study something, let's say, for your English exam. If you're going to take you 3 hours to study, is it better to study the night before for 3 hours or 3 days in a row? So Tuesday, 1 hour, and Wednesday, 1 hour. Let's stop at that, and then Thursday you have the exam. Which one would be better? Wednesday, 3 hours, or Tuesday 1 hour, Wednesday 1 hour, exams on Thursday. Which one would be better?
Tuesday 1 hour, Wednesday 1 hour.
But you're getting less time to revise.
But I think you'll recall more.
Yeah. So they found time and time again that for you to learn something, if it's something takes you 3 hours, you can actually learn it in the 2 hour period if you space it out rather than learning all at one go. So that could be spacing between days or even hours. In our parents' union, I kept on mentioning that, look, when you're going home, make sure that you recite the Quran with them once at least, the new ayah that we're memorizing. Because we memorized it, initially, there's a steep drop that takes place, unless it's brought back up to 100 again. So spacing is very, very important. If they do something for an hour, and they do it 3 times a week, that's not as effective as they're doing for half an hour throughout the week. Right? So spacing our learning out, it's crucial to learn better. So this comes into Muraja as well, which Imam Uthman will go over a little bit more as well. But you have to also be careful that you don't reduce the time to so little that it actually loses its impact. That you do it for like 2 minutes and then, oh, no, we are spacing it out. It has to be a decent amount of time where they can actually learn the material once well, and then leave some time, and then learn again. Next, new memory interferes with old memory. This comes back to the importance of revision. When you learn something new, so imagine I'm teaching them addition. They're learning addition, they're doing really, really well. And they move on to subtraction. All the additions gets forgotten because it gets rewritten by subtraction, because they're very, very similar processes. Until some of the techniques that you learn will be very similar. So what's actually better to do? Addition, subtraction, addition, subtraction, rather than how it's normally taught, all addition, all subtraction. Right? So because you get time to revise your items, as well as making sure that the new memory is not interfering with the old one. So revision for Quran, revision is paramount. You need to be revising every single day. Going forward is the easy part. Memorization is the easy part. Revision is the actual hard part. because you're going to end up forgetting a lot quicker because of all the new stuff that you're learning. The last one, sleep. Everyone knows the importance of sleep. But for consolidation, in terms of putting things away in storage from our short-term type memory to long-term memories, it happens mostly during sleep time. A little bit of it happens during wakefulness, but 80-90% of our consolidation takes place during sleep, where our brain just kind of puts everything away in the right place. So if they learn something before sleep, more effective, especially Quran before sleep or right after them waking up, would be more useful than somewhere in the middle of the day where new memory can actually mask what they just learned. So right before sleep or right after sleep. Spacing effect, this is just to show you, participants who use space practice on memory tasks outperform those using massed practice in 259 out of 271 cases. Right? So very, very important, these elements, having space in between your learning, as well as getting good sleep as well, and revision of your sleep. Arabic, I'm actually going to quickly skip over this part because we're not going to have enough time. We'll go to how we can help in Arabic in particular, right? I was going to talk a bit about how we do it. It's mainly communication rather than nahu-based, grammar-based. So we try to speak to the children a lot more so they hear a lot of Arabic, and slowly bringing their levels up so they're able to respond in Arabic as well. Because them recognizing things comes first, recalling is a lot harder, as we already saw, right? So we want them to recognize Arabic really, really well, and then slowly build them up towards more and more output, which is recall, which is a harder task than just recognition. So how does that impact our learning of Arabic? So flashcards, a couple of quick things. Flashcard can look like this. When we have, for us, the Arabic and English on one side, there's two ways that you can go about it. Either hide the English and just say the Arabic. So you hide the English, so you say tamr, they have to tell us this dates. That's the easier way, that's the easy part, that's recognition. But you could hide the Arabic, say dates, and they have to recall the Arabic word. That's harder. So if they're really, really good at something, so first you want to start them off with the first way. Dates, tamr, they'll tell you dates. And then when they get a bit more comfortable at the set of vocabulary, you can switch it over to the other way around. Right, tell me what's dates. They'll have to give you the Arabic word, rather than hearing the Arabic and putting two and two together. Is that clear? Couple of quick oddities about Arabic that we need to kind of discuss. Masculine and female. So in your vocabulary that's going to be coming, all the word would be masculine. So it will just say tabib, for example, because every single word have a masculine and a female version. So a table, I can't say, there's no it in Arabic, it has to be he or a she. So I have to say he is white, she is white, rather than saying. The grammar, Arabic elements of it, as we cover it in class, we'll also send you a kind of document just explaining what's going on, and then you could ask us, how do we go about doing this? This is important for our flashcards, because if you say doctor, it has to be a male or a female doctor. So you could say tabib or tabiba. So they have to make the distinction. In their mind, they need to know both of these things. So they can't say, for example, if you say this doctor, it can be this male doctor, this female doctor. Now, hada tabiba would be incorrect, whereas hada tabib would be correct. So there is male and female distinctions. So when you're testing them, you could actually ask, oh, what's the female version of it? What's the male version of it? Oh, you're giving the male one anyway. So if they say tabib, oh, okay, hada tabib, hadi would be, they have to say tabiba. That's one way to help them learn the distinction between the two. This is slightly easier one, more harder version is this. I forgot another one as well. Each of the individual, in English, plurals are mostly easy, meaning you just put S to it. Tables. In Arabic, most of it is difficult and some of it is easy. There is a sound plural where you just put Muslim, Muslimun, un, put to the end of it, you got the plural in Arabic. But most of the time it doesn't work. You can't say tamar, tamarun, right? It's not. So it has to be an irregular plural, which means you have to move. So they have to learn the single and the plural word for it. At the moment, we're not covering plural. We're only covering the singular versions. As they learn, get better at it, we'll actually, in the flashcards, they'll have two words. The two words will be singular and the plural. So when they come back home, they have to recall, they have to say tamar, tumur. Right? They have to say both of the words, rather than just one. For verbs, it has another complexity involved where we say he did, she did, they did, I did, we did. In Arabic, it's just one word, the sorting changes. So you have yashrabu, he did, and then tashrabu, he did, or you did, or ashrabu, I did, or I drank, or nashrabu. So there's no point of having 12 different words in your flashcard, so you will only have yashrabu. You should ask, oh, how do you say you drank, or you're drinking? And they have to recall, oh, it's actually tashrabu. Oh, how do you say I'm drinking? They have to say ashrabu. Or you say, I'm drinking. How do you say that? If they say yashrabu, that would be incorrect. They have to say ashrabu. But again, the details of it will be given to you. I'm just presenting it now, so that when you do the flashcards, it's not a simple matter of, oh, drinking. They say yashrabu. You have to ask some further questions to embed in their minds the different grammatical concepts which it has to be learned, because it is a grammatical language. The last one, another complexity is, that's just the present tense. There's also the issue of past tense and then the verbal noun. There's lots of complexity, but we're not going to go through it. As we cover it with the kids, you're going to end up, we'll send you a document explaining it, so hopefully you can practice it with the kids. This is just for information's sake.
Are these flashcards going to be issued as well?
Flashcards are this, you'll have to make it. Talking about flashcards, we're thinking about putting it into something called Anki, which is a app version, which makes the space repetition automatic. Rather than we thinking about, oh, I've done this today, I need to leave some space. It does it automatically. iOS is about £18. So we're working on that, digitizing some of these things, putting in the flashcards. So when we do that, that'll make life easier. For now, if you want to use flashcards, just cut them up or use them as a list. It's up to you how you want to use it. Another way, easy, simple thing that you can improve on, if your kids are already getting screen time, don't try to reduce the screen time, at least try to change screen time to something better. So Arabic cartoons. We'll be sending off about 3 different, I don't know much about young Arabic cartoons for kids. I found about 2-3 of them which seems okay. So you could experiment with those ones, start with, and then if you find anything that's decent, let us all know as well. So because that's gonna help them exposed to a lot more Arabic than you can do at home. Right? So Arabic cartoon, changing them up. Replace method, if they're finding any words that are considerably difficult, they're getting it wrong all the time, just start using them in your own vocabulary. So they're always getting table wrong, just don't say the word table anymore, just use the word tawila, because you'll have the word in front of you, right? Just don't do it for everything, because we're not Arabic speakers, we won't be able to do it. At least for some words, targeted words that they're constantly finding difficult. And using set phrases, this is more about chunking. So, for example, they'll say, if you ask any of the kids, they'll say, Kayfa haluka, they'll automatically reply with, Ana bi khair, alhamdulillah, Ismi. If they'll say, always, they won't just say, Ismi Umar, they'll say, Ismi Umar, Masmuk. Because they just memorize as one thing, right? So it's good to have set phrases that you can keep on using all the time, so they just memorize that as a whole thing. And then later on, they'll be able to say, just say, Ismi Umar, I don't want to know your name, right? Rather than just saying, Ismi Umar, Masmuk. Last thing, Imam Uthman's going to explain this in a lot more detail, learning with your child, but I will leave that to him.
This part of the workshop, inshallah, is going to focus around tarbiyah, specifically on Islamic upbringing, and Quran reading, Quran memorizing. Okay. First thing I want you to do is, on your sheet over here, you'll see, he says, what do you want your child to become? I want you to discuss with your partners, if you have a vision for your child, what is it? So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. So ask yourself, what kind of personality do you want your child to become? What achievements do you want to see in your child? What do you desire for your child? So do you have a personality in mind that I want my child to become like so and so? Or do you have an idea of your own what your child wants to become? And just discuss that and put that down, please.
Fantasies have to become concrete.
That's be real, isn't it?
All of the above.
A lot of it can be repeated because of the memory stuff. All the puppets, isn't it? It's just like linking the two together. Okay, ready? Still thinking? If you're thinking now, it's a bit worried. But this should have been done long time ago.
Yeah, somebody's with them.
Okay. Anyone want to share their vision?
That's a bit exercise. We put down a passion for memorizing the Quran and just implementation of a Quranic lifestyle.
What does that look like?
As in, refers back to it for guidance on every matter, whether it's mannerisms, whether it's adab, whether it's just using it as a bit of a compass.
Okay, okay. But what do you want your child to become?
Footballer. You'd love it if you only say that.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think the Quran is the same thing.
Anyone else want to share something?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've written Hafid Quran, be able to speak Arabic. A trained mother, well-rounded in everything. A cook, well-read.
Everything. MashaAllah. Anyone else? Anyone else? Sisters there?
Good akhlaq.
Good akhlaq. Okay. Let's have one more.
Martial arts teacher.
Fine. That's something specific, which I like. Because what I was looking for is something specific. If you don't have something specific, you don't know what your product needs to be. You don't know how to nurture them to become that product. Okay? Akhlaq, everything is a byproduct. It's something part and parcel of any product. Right? But what's the overall outcome that you want your child to be? You can say Umar radiallahu anh. But you have something, you have someone that you are looking up to, they're looking up to, and now the rest of the journey which you are going to take, the actions that you are going to take, the places that you are going to take them to, the learning that you are going to put them through will all be tailored around making that child into Umar radiallahu anh. Is it? So number one, having a vision for your child on what you want them to become will make a massive difference in the steps that you take throughout their life. So, for you to bring your children to Growery, okay, there were certain reasons. They may not have, or they may have added to a vision which you have for your child. But what we should be doing is having a higher aim. Right? There's nothing that says your child to become like so and so, Umar radiallahu anh, Salahuddin Ayyubi is impossible. When Salahuddin Ayyubi someone asked me this question recently in one of the programs. So what do we have to do with our children? Or on a greater scale, how are we going to produce another Salahuddin Ayyubi in this ummah, especially with what's going around? So the answer was, the mothers and the fathers have to produce them. Because Salahuddin Ayyubi didn't just become Salahuddin Ayyubi from birth. There was a vision when he was born. His parents had tutors. They handed him over to the tutor and said, this is what he needs to become. His tutor then mentored him, developed him, gave him the skills, and then gave him the mission. You need to go and liberate Masjid al-Aqsa. There was a whole lifetime of an effort behind that one child from the time he was, a baby to when he was grown up. Then he became what he became. Likewise, if we want any of our children to become anything, even if it's a doctor, a practicing doctor, fine. What does a practicing doctor look like? Okay, what are the things that needs to be put in place so that he or she can go off? They need to go to maybe college, university, right? There's a lot of things that you need to do the tarbiyah from early on so they survive those environments out there. So that's why, yes, having something specific to begin with is going to play a very big role in everything that you do. Take, for example, planting a seed. When you plant a seed into the soil, it's not just going to grow into an orange tree, an apple tree. You have to have the right seed, number one. Number two, the environment that you give to this seed is what's going to allow it to grow or just die out. It needs sunlight, it needs oxygen, it needs the right temperature. Likewise, our children growing up, we can't expect them to become even a hafiz al-Quran if they don't have the environment around them, if they don't have the right temperature, if they're not breathing in the right oxygen. To become a hafiz al-Quran, they will not become one. At the same time, when this seed begins to blossom and grow, then you have the problems of pests. You have weeds that grow as well. What you need to do is you need to put something in place so that pests don't ruin your crop, and you need to pull out the weeds. Likewise, when our child is growing, around the home, there may be pests, there may be weeds. They take up the energy which this little plant needs. Instead of the plant absorbing the nutrients of the soil, the sunlight, the oxygen, you have the weeds that really absorb all of these things. The plant loses out, the weeds grow more. We have to find what is the weed, what are the pests around my children, around my child, which is going to hamper or put into, it's going to be detrimental to the child's growth or to spiritual growth or to them becoming what we want them to become. So, tarbiyah is exactly this. Never will there be a moment, a day, or a time where the farmer or the person growing can become neglectful of the crop. In all the aspects of sunlight, of oxygen, of temperature. Any of these three at any one time is abandoned or neglected, it's going to ruin the child. So that continues until when? When can this person now stop looking after this plant? When they're married, grow your own now. It's ongoing. Until you see the fruits, you pluck the fruits and you eat it, then you're satisfied. So throughout those years, every single day, you have to ensure that there's no storm that comes and just blows it away. No violent wind comes and destroys all your effort. It doesn't take long. To grow takes years. But it takes one storm to come and blow everything that you've done away. And you will find that through experience, through people's experiences, how they've done everything for their child. There was a sudden friend that came after a couple of days, 1 week down, the whole study's gone down, the whole tarbiyah's gone down, everything's gone down. it took a matter of one companion, one wrong weed, pest, whatever you want to call it, to come in. Tarbiyah is the hardest job ever. Okay, so it takes every, when usually when people come and the parents come to enroll their children in our madrasa, I say the child may have been enrolled in the madrasa, but at the same time the mother or father enrolled as well, and all the other siblings have also been enrolled, because whatever rule applies to this child will apply to the mother and the father and the children too. Otherwise it just won't work. How can you have one child sitting down to learn the Quran and the other siblings are playing their PS4? It's not going to happen. It will not happen. They are the weeds and the pests around that will take over. So just imagine with your child, that's the seed, okay? Tarbiyah starts from the point of marriage and conception, all the way. From the time that the baby is in the mother's womb, tarbiyah starts then too. Just imagine what the mother eats, okay? Affects the child. If the mother's alcoholic, affects the child. If the mother's going through heavy medication, it affects the child in the womb. Spiritually is the same too. Whatever the mother listens to, the mother says, does, affects the child too. Tarbiyah already has begun from the time the child is in the womb. Then of course when the child comes out, Allah Ta'ala mentions three things. وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ. That you came into this world with nothing except three things. Your hearing, your eyesight, and your heart. Whatever the child hears, yes, 1 day old or 1 week old or 1 year old, whatever the child sees goes into the heart. That's the way the child is learning now. The first faculties which Allah Ta'ala enables within this child, hearing, eyesight, and the heart. So these three things need to be preserved of the child always, from before birth, after birth, all the way. These are the entry points into the heart. Sorry, I've been clicking the wrong way. Now, what should we do as parents to guide our children? Any ideas? We said tarbiyah begins from conception of the child, from the first thing they see here. Second thing is the parental role model. Why is that important? Can you tell me?
See your example.
Do we spend the most time with them?
You are the first teacher. You are the first teachers. They see you the most. And nobody has more authority than you in the eyes of the child. This is not committing shirk, but you are in what we call, you are God to them. Anything that happens to them, it's mom, dad. Before anything. Hungry, mom, dad. Tired, it's mom, dad. Any fear, who will they run back to? The mom or the dad. That is the highest authority for them. Whatever you do, you validate for them to do. Whatever you wear, you validate for them to wear. Whatever you watch, you say, you validate for them to. It can never be that I smoke and I say, son, don't smoke. It has never worked, it will never work. Until this child grows up and has a sense of his own, and then he makes the differentiation between right and wrong. But from the early years, it is what he sees. It is what she sees. So parental role model is extremely important, Islamically as well as overall as well. So if they're learning, for example, in the Islamic studies in the brewery, about Salah being fard, and they see at home, I haven't seen anyone pray Salah. They won't say anything. Believe me, they won't say anything. But over time, they will develop a concept. Scary thing is, they become hypocritical. Because that's what they've grown into. I've had children that will come and say, Ustad, you said music was haram. It says in the book. But when I'm going home from the masjid, my dad plays it. And when I say something, he says, oh, don't worry about it. So now this child growing up, what do you expect from the child? Confusion. And then it leads to hypocritical behavior all around. And now this can be with everything. Okay, I just gave one example. But if you want them to read Quran, have they seen you read Quran? Because believe me, if they've seen you read Quran, you don't have to tell them to read Quran. They will pick up the Quran and they will just imitate you. If they've seen you pray Salah, they'll put on a scarf or anything around their head and make it into a scarf, and they'll just go into sajda when you go into sajda. You don't have to say anything to them. See? That's parental role model. You don't have to tell them Salah is fard. They've not known anything else except Salah in their life, because that's all they've seen. They've never seen anything but you in the morning reciting Quran. You don't have to tell them anymore. They know this is part of life. It's not part of Islam per se, as we say. This is part of life. This is their oxygen, this is their sunlight, this is the soil that they're growing up in. Okay. So, again, whatever you want your child to become, do it before you ask them to do it. They will fall into routine with you. If they're memorizing, like I said, the mother and the father enrolls at the same time as the child. If you don't know how to recite Quran, never mind. Learn the same time as your child. The child probably doesn't know that you're learning at the same time, but carry on learning. Many a times, I've had some teachers as well, for example, that they haven't gone through a whole system, right? They've learned how to read Quran, so we've just employed them to teach the Quran. Then it comes to memorizing du'as. Now, it has happened that the teachers don't know the du'as, but they are teaching the children the du'as and they learn it at the same time. Why not? Parents can do the same. You don't know the du'a, never mind. Let's learn it at the same time as the children. Okay. So they will see you learn it, have this. Okay, I'm learning this, let's see who learns it first. You can make it into a competition. But the point is, you must be doing it as well. That will really motivate the children to learn more. Tacit behavioral learning is prior to overt formal learning. Other words, there's a lot of things that can be learned if you are implementing it as part of your Muslim Islamic lifestyle. For example, one is I sit down and I say, okay, this is your target, dua 1 to 5, you need to have it learnt. Okay, they'll sit down, they'll read it, memorize it, they'll pass the exam, they'll come number 1. They might end up forgetting it. But was it of any use to them that they sat down and learnt those du'as? Maybe some have learnt up to 100 du'as, for example. It will be of no use. All that time that was spent in just sitting down and learning could have been actually avoided if it was in the lifestyle of the family. So waking up dua, going to sleep dua, going out of the house, these are things that everyone does. If you're human, you're going to do it. Right. Make the dua as part of your life, part of the child's life, before they even get to the stage of having a book in front of them. They already know the dua. They already know Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa alaikum assalam. They know the dua. Everyone has milk. They know the dua for the milk. I'm not going to test you. So, by the time they're 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, they know a good amount of du'as because it's been embedded within their life. That is tacit behavioral learning. Going to the toilet, give them the adab. Don't wait until they come to the growery and start learning it as part of the Islamic studies or anything. A lot of Islamic studies will be passed on to our children if we have it as part of our entire 24 hours. That's the easiest way to impart knowledge. And don't be afraid if you do not know it. Easiest, stick the du'as on the doors, right? Outside of the toilet somewhere, put the du'a there. You will learn it, they will learn it. On the fridge somewhere, the du'a for eating, somewhere where it's visible at the time of food, at the time of your meals. You learn it at the same time. So these little prompts around will help you and help the children learn also. That's the last one. Okay. Now specifically with the Quran. Okay, this will be a challenge for many because of either past bad experiences. Well, I've gone through the same anyway. I'm not. We were in that era where we got beats. We had a league table. I was number 3. I was top 3 to get beats. It was part and parcel of life, right? And that
Good achievement. Top 3.
good achievement, is it? So many parents now have still live with those bad experiences. So they take, as Ashraf was saying, Quran to be something which is not for them or which is too hard. Okay, it's time to put that aside and start with a clean sheet and face the challenge. But here's a question to you. Hifz versus reading, which is priority? Reading? Any reason why? Daily habit. What else?
It help later.
Help. You know, in some cultures, everyone's here from the Asian culture, so you're always saying reading, right? Somalian culture, Arab culture, memorizing comes first. So they memorize by sima'a, by listening, hearing, and they will memorize even before they read. So I have a lot of Somalian students who come to me, but they don't know how to read the Quran. I said, look, we can't help you. Because our structure is, foundation is reading. You become independent in your reading, then you'll become independent in your memorizing. Is that my tea? So, the better way is to read first, to be able to read first. And especially, for example, in the setting of brewery, a focus in reading is needed because it will help in Arabic as well. So if we have Arabic, we have Quran, and we have memorizing. So there are those who are doing qaida, for example. Okay. So their qaida, the more focus that is placed in the qaida, that will further help them in learning the Arabic vocabulary and their speaking skills in Arabic as well. Okay. Because the makharij, the pronunciations of the letters are going to form the whole language thereafter. So qaida. So from qaida should be given the first priority into developing letters into words into sentences, then developing the fluency of that. When a child can read one line in one go, which means one breath, you'll say fine, they're fairly fluent. Now memorizing will be so much more easier. Memorizing takes repetition. Okay. In order to repeat a verse which you're stuttering through is going to be tiresome. But a line or a verse which you're fluent in reading, to repeat that 10 times won't take much effort. Further reducing the load that you have and focusing on just memorizing. Okay. Now, in order how to inculcate the different skills of teaching how to develop that fluency will take a lot more time, but I'm going to see how much I can say in this. In order to read the Quran, there isn't any magic. Maybe I should have put, there's no ruqya for it. Yeah? There's no wazifa for it, or ta'weez for it. Yeah? Practice is key. It's repetition. That's for reading and for memorizing. There is no magical formula at all. Yes?
Can I ask a question on that? What do you do if you have a challenge of when a child reads, they end up memorizing what they're reading?
A child ends up memorizing what they're reading.
Sorry, that probably isn't explained. So when Abdullah was doing qaida, he would bala wa amara and progress to the later pages as well. He'll memorize it
Yes.
quicker than he's able to read it. So then if I gave that same word to him in a different font,
Yeah.
in a mushaf, he will struggle with it. But only he's memorized the order of the qaida.
Yeah. So what you do, you reverse the order.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even that he recognizes that box.
Then he knows how to read it.
No, what it is, just say for example you have amara balagha, okay, and you have that order all the way down. Start from the end and go backwards. Or tell him to read the word in reverse. So instead of amara, it will be rama'a.
So what do you do when you get?
You're testing the skill, right? The skill of reading. The skill of being able to vocalize the letter with the haraka, with the fatha, dhamma, kasra. That's what you're testing. So as a parent or as a teacher, you need to know what skill or what is the objective of this lesson, and you're testing whether they have grasped that skill. See, that's what you need to do. So randomly choose different words and letters. So that's the point. You're not testing the page. You're not testing them if they know qaida by heart. You're testing whether they've grasped the lessons which the qaida is imparting, the skills that is required for them to read. That's the main concept of the qaida. Okay. So, as practical steps, if the parent is not fluent in reading themselves, then you have the Safar reading companion. You're doing Safar Qaida, isn't it? Yeah. So on YouTube, if you just put in Safar Qaida, you'll have the video clips of them reciting the certain chapters or pages, and the child just needs to follow through. Listen to it and follow through. That's if the parents makharij, or they think the makharij might not be the same as what the teacher expects. Further instruction by parent. If the parent is not a confident reader, then another teacher for both parent and child. For school, for our normal studies, everyone does it. If a child is not performing well in maths, science, English, we look for a tutor. How much of it costs, we pay them, right? The same importance needs to be given to the Quran. If you feel that during the time that they are at the growery or at a certain class, they're not performing that well, or they need extra help, yes, find a tutor. Find someone who can teach them. In person is the best, but if not, worst case is you will find someone online. Find someone, ask those who can read well, maybe some of the teachers over here, to verify whether the person whom you're looking to hire is actually qualified or has the correct pronunciations. Many times you have online from Pakistan, India, and their pronunciations are just not to the level or standard that we expect. Okay. How much time do you need to spend reading at home? The more the better. But see, if you can spend 15 minutes in total, or even 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, 10 minutes in the morning. 7 minutes before going to bed, as soon as they wake up, 7 minutes. Again, it ties back into the consolidating the memory. The last thing they do, even if it's memorizing or reading, get them to read the Quran or their lesson before going to sleep a number of times. They don't have to, even if they're memorizing, we're not saying memorize, just read. Read 25 times that lesson before going to bed. When the child wakes up in the morning, the first thing they will do before breakfast, after breakfast, whichever way it is, or whilst they're waiting for breakfast, is go over that same lesson again. Okay. That will be the easiest way for the child to memorize that passage or that lesson of this. Tried and tested. The best method ever. At night time before going to sleep, repetition, and when they wake up, repeat that same. It saves time. It will be more productive than sitting down for half an hour, 1 hour. Some children sit for hours, but they get nothing done because, again, they're not using their memory most effectively. And spacing, a short sitting and repetition, space it out, have a break, and then come back to it. That will be more effective in them retaining what they've learned. Now, in hifz, is completing the Quran the objective?
Yes.
Anyone else? Who said hafiz? You said hafiz as well? No, it was you then.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think so. I think even if there's a consistency and a regularity in memorizing, however long that takes. So if it means that
Okay.
one day, if you're consistent one day, you'll memorize the whole thing. But
Yeah, there's two things. One is having objective of memorizing the Quran, yes. The entire, yes. Should it be done in a short space of time or over a long period of time? Now you can debate the pros and cons of it. Okay. I'm going to quickly shout it out to you. I think there was an exercise to do it, but because we're running short of time. Just say taking the long period of time. He can memorize it. Objective is to memorize Quran. He can be 60 years old when he finishes. I've come across a 65-year-old who finished learning the Quran, but he started when he was 60 years old. Yeah, so don't give up. One is you say, okay, it's a lifetime thing. Okay, I will memorize it as we go. We grow in life. We'll continue. Sahaba actually did it in that way. Abdullah bin Umar took 7 years to do Baqarah only. That's because he learned the tafsir of it, the implementation of it, and then went forward. The world that we live in, we don't have the environment around us to support this structure though. Just think about it, your child. You say, okay, fine. When you grow up, just continue learning. There will be a matter of 5 years under you. From that point, when they hit their teens, they're no longer in your control. Do they have the environment around them? In your home, around in society, do they have the right companionship, the right atmosphere, so that you can, it guarantees they can continue with this kind of objective of finishing the Quran? Really, they don't have it. So that opportunity to memorize the Quran is usually lost until much later in their life, when they mature, when they grow up, maybe 20 plus years old. Then they say, you know what, I'm quite settled with all my studies. Okay, maybe they've gone on to get married, and after marriage, they're a bit more focused in life, so they come back to it. Okay, how many people do that? Apart from the few here, I don't know anyone else. Right. So that's why the other option is a shorter period of time, intense, and have their Quran memorization done before they get to their GCSEs. That's what I push for, because I can do something which is going to be under my supervision. Once they're out of my supervision, I don't know what's happened to them. So whilst they're there, I say, you got 4 years. Okay, year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. If you start earlier, the better. Before all of that pressure comes, have your mind solely for the Quran, memorize it. The only thing left is repetition after that. Just muraja'a, revision and revision. Benefit of that is, they've done it when their mind is fresh and young. It gives them good leadership skills, because when they hit puberty, they have opportunities to lead. Leading people in salah, reciting the Quran, increases their maturity, their sense of responsibility. It overall gives them a better platform to stand. Self-esteem, confidence, everything. There's a lot of skills and qualities which will come with the Quran itself, because Allah has guaranteed that precisely. So instead of leaving that to a later stage of life, give it earlier. It may be the very means of your child being protected from all the other vices around as well. Because if they're not engaged in memorizing the Quran, they're doing something else. So whatever that other thing is, you rather have all that time invested in reciting the Quran, memorizing the Quran. Yes, they might not have enough screen time, game time, all of that. Don't worry. Later in life, they will never ever regret it. They will not regret it. See? So when it comes to long-term memorizing these short-term and more intense, I do push for the short-term, more intense one. It safeguards their time, safeguards them, and it gives them a better perspective further in life to do other things. So once they've accomplished their hifz, now you can say, okay, they've finished their hifz now. That's one objective accomplished. What's next? Will they go into tafsir? Will they become a scholar? Will they become an imam? They can become anything, right? Because you've already accomplished one stage. Hifz is only one part of the entire package. Okay? So never make that your overall goal and that's it, is accomplished and they can do everything else. Biggest mistake, let alone memorizing. A lot of parents think, once my child has completed one khatam of the Quran, my job's done. That's in Nadra, with tajweed, without tajweed, who cares? They've done it. Scarves off, topis off, done. Masjid, we don't need to go anymore. We finished it. That is the worst thing that you can ever do. That concept, I don't even know what to say about that concept. That's how bad it is. Right? Quran has to be a lifetime. Yes. But there is a lot more in learning the Quran, got to do the Quran, than what people actually think. Memorizing is just the ABC of everything. ABC. There's a whole ocean to dive into and to discover and to take. Is there need to learn tafsir, hadith, fiqh, and aqidah? Glory, do you have aqidah classes? Yes or no? Astaghfirullah, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Some parents do come and ask these questions, so I can only laugh. The reason is because we have Islamic studies. Okay, so I want my child to learn tafsir, hadith. I said, they're learning tafsir, they're learning hadith, they're learning aqidah, learning everything. For God's sake, it's only 5 years old, 6 years old, so of course the tafsir is going to be digested in a way that they can understand. You see? So everything is taught in Islamic studies is from the Quran, Hadith. It better be, right? No, yeah. So it is tafsir, it is Hadith. It might not have an Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu qala Rasulullah. It doesn't have that because they're 6 years old. Yes. But when they learn Arabic and they're learning the Quran on the side and they're learning Islamic studies, a time will come when they will just have to join the dots. They've learned Arabic now. They've learned the content of the Quran and the Hadith. Now you give them a Hadith in its full form or a verse in its full form. They say, you know what? We've learned this already. That's what happens when they grow up, having learned Arabic over time. Okay. I think I'll have to merits of understanding and implementation. Okay, I'm going to have to give that miss. Practical tips. This one, to say the truth, a lot of this has been covered already in the memory workshop at the beginning. Okay, it's just about putting all that theory into practice. Now, I'm going to give you one tip, the easiest way. We have short verses, we have long verses. At the end of the Quran are all short verses. Amma yatasa'alun, 29th juz, 28th juz, 27, and 26 starts getting longer, 25th gets longer. From Baqarah onwards, just the size of Baqarah, the size of the ayahs are also so big, right? So, it's more motivational to start from the back for a lot of the children, because each surah they accomplish is like, oh yes, wow, I've got through this one. As opposed to starting Baqarah, it's never ending, right? So all is to get them used to memorizing and keeping them motivated, start from the back. When you start from the back, again, chunking is what we learned that. Never used to use the word chunking, but this is how it is. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ. That is short enough, but if you want to shorten it further, وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ. That needs to be repeated up to 7 times, looking inside, cover, then off memory 7 times. Go on to the next one. وَالْيَوْمِ they're fluent with reading it. وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ 7 times looking, 7 times without looking. Now you're going to start from here again. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ 7 times looking, then 7 times without looking. If they're able to do that, they're good to go on. But each new verse, after having been memorized, you're going to start from the beginning and join it all up. Okay. When it comes to a long verse, this is where you're going to do the chunking. أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَى أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَى أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَى. Done? أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَى أُولَٰئِكَ عَلَى هُدًى مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ. So you've split the line into 2. You can do it further, even smaller, depending on the words. But the same concept is you will learn the second part. Once that's memorized, you're going to have the first and the second part put together, read, looking inside, then covered, and without looking. And that's how you proceed from one ayah. It's a long method, but it's the most rigorous method in order to retain everything that's learned. If you're just going to go ahead, by the time you get to the 10th verse, first verse is gone. Another thing, whatever they learn today, tomorrow it's forgotten. We had the chart, isn't it? That's natural. So the next day, the previous day's lesson has to be revised. And each page that you go ahead, or each day that you go ahead memorizing new verses, new lines or pages, every day there has to be a recap of the previous day and the previous days and the previous days. So when I start from the beginning of the juz, just say first page has been done today. Tomorrow I learn the second page. I will also read the first page with the second page. Third day I will read the new page plus the first, second and the third. Every single day after the new lesson, the new page, I will always start from the beginning of the juz again and have that all memorized. Every single day that will continue until you reach half a juz. Then once the child can read the entire half juz in one go, then you say, okay fine, let's reduce 5 pages now and start from the 6th page onwards. But the same concept is to be applied throughout the whole juz. There's no magical formula except what the Prophet ﷺ said, ta'ahadu bil Quran, you have to be after the Quran. You have to always keep after it and tie it up. So that's how, and the same thing is to be applied with the du'as. If they're not doing it tacitly as part of their life, then the same concept of revision needs to be applied there too. I'm short of time now. 1 second. Here's my phone. If I can get someone to cover.
Do you have like an age descriptor of by 2 they could read this by or before the age of 5, by 10, by 7, like some sort of realistic where they should be at?
In Quran,
Yeah. Is there such a thing?
there isn't, but if they start from year 1, then you can expect the qaida to take up to 1 to 2 years.
2 years of learning.
Yeah, it all depends on how many lessons they're having.
When you say year 1, you mean 5 years old?
5 to 6 years old. Yeah. So easily by the end of 2 years they should be finished. So if you're looking at Safar Academy Qaida, say level 1 to level 6 within a year, then level 7 to 14 in the second year. That's with around 3 lessons a week. That's how. But there's some children will be more faster than others. One thing that really helps in reading is if from a young age, 1 year old, 2 years old, they're constantly listening to Quran. So if it's just playing in your car at home, it's just like language, isn't it? You don't formally sit them down and teach them the language that you speak. It's just because you're speaking that language to them, they pick it up. Instead of speaking your Punjabi, if you spoke Arabic, they would pick that up. Right? So same when it comes to Quran. If they're constantly listening to Quran, when the time comes to learn it, it's there somewhere at the back of their memory. I don't know about the theories behind it, but but it will come more naturally onto their tongues, the pronunciations, the words, and the fluency. But in terms of ages, there isn't any. But if you were to start from year 1, I would say take up to 2 years to finish the qaida. But that's the Safar qaida. You get the other qaidas which are much shorter, so that can be done in a year, depending on how it's taught. Anyone, which mushaf do you use for Quran? What's it called?
The Uthmani script.
Uthmani script. Anyone use a non-Uthmani script?
The Usmani script.
Why is it called Uthmani script?
I think you told me this, but I don't remember what you
Alright,
said.
so if I've told you, don't say anything then.
But I don't remember what you said.
That in fact.
Uthmani script.
Mine isn't that far. Is it?
Anyone? Anyone reading a Pakistani script? Yes? Okay, anyone reading a different script? No.
Is there a different script? I don't know. A Somalian script or
The Bengali one.
the Bengali one?
There is.
Oh, there is one, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a common misconception that there's an Uthmani script and there's a non-Uthmani script. So some parents have this inferiority complex, or we don't want to say we're doing this Pakistani script, right? So they'll force their child to do the other one. I don't call it Uthmani script or non-Uthmani script, because if you're reading a non-Uthmani script, I don't know what you're reading. Uthmani script has no dots, has no fatha, dhamma, kasra, by the way. Can you imagine? So your Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim will have no dots and will have no fatha, dhamma, kasra. That's Uthmani script. That Uthmani script was taken and was tailored, or was the haraka and the tashkil was put in to facilitate the reading and the dots. Otherwise there was no dots. There's no difference between a ba and a ya. There wasn't any. Later on these dots were introduced, the harakas were introduced, fatha, dhamma, kasra, these were all introduced in order to facilitate the reading.
Is that even in the basic alphabet then as well? So the ba, the ya,
Yeah,
and the dots,
yeah.
even in the basic alphabet?
No dots. What we have now is the difference between a Medina script and a non-Medina script. That's what we have. They are both Uthmani script because the skeleton is taken from the Uthmani script for both. In the non-Medina script, extra things were put in to facilitate the reading for non-Arabs, which I think the Arabs nowadays need as well. That's the truth. Why is this then called Uthmani script? Because the person who actually wrote this by hand, his name was Uthman Taha. You see, so if you look at the front of the Quran, in the front page of this, right at the beginning, his name will be there, Uthman Taha. So that's why it's called the Uthmani script, not because it refers back to what Uthman bin Affan compiled. Otherwise, all the different scripts that we have now, they're all Uthmani script. This one I call the Medina script. And the non-Medina script, which is usually prevalent in the Asian communities, that is the first one I think was in South Africa, which they printed. And it was republished or reprinted in India, Pakistan, and everywhere else. See? And they added a few extra things to further make it easier for the non-Arabs to read. For example, Medina script, yes? You're going to get tested now. If it's not on here, then you're lucky.
The wrong?
No, Hamzat al-Wasl. Okay, we don't have. Yeah, we don't have one here. Well, we have one here, but this is an easy one. Yeah, this alif over here is called Hamzat al-Wasl. It has no fatha, dhamma, kasra. Okay, an Arab will know to say alladhi lahu mulku samawat, or in which ayah is it? You know, in the non-Medina script, you have a small little noon in certain places. Yeah, yawma idhinil haqq. In this script, all you'll find is yawma idhin and al-haq. Now, a lot of people will say yawma idhil haq. Yeah, because the dal has a tanween, yawma idhin and al-haq. In the non-Medina script, the Pakistani script, it will have after the dal a small noon with a kasra. So the person will know, actually, yawma idhinil haq, they'll use the noon to join into the next word. But this script won't have it. So if your child has already been going to Quran classes and using the non-Medina script, okay, and they come onto this, they're going to find it difficult. If they're starting fresh and starting from Medina script and the qa'idah is based on the Medina script, then in that qa'idah, as they're using in a growery, we'll teach how to read those passages correctly. Right? So you're using Medina script, right?
Yeah.
So if you come to the orange levels, over there you'll find the special cases and the special rules. So even if adults, you're using the Medina script but you don't exactly know the rules, it's best to refer back to the qa'idah and look at those lessons and see how to read those. Okay? But that's the difference. So some parents have this confusion about Uthmani script, non-Uthmani script. But it's nothing. They're all Uthmani script. This is a Medina script, usually tailored for the Arab audience because they already know how to read it naturally, and the other one is tailored towards the non-Arab Arab audience. Yeah. What else is there? Okay, certain things that you have to possibly instill in the child, even before reading. Adab. Since you're reading the Quran, one adab is of course the wudu aspect of it. They're not baligh, right? It's fine. They're going to make a mess in your bathroom. It's fine. But have in mind there's going to be a stage where you have to introduce the wudu. And you have to train them before that they understand they cannot be just touching the Quran without wudu. At this stage, 5 years old, 6 years old, you can give it a miss. But there's other adab. Sitting up straight. Now some will be reading like this or just the way they read some other books. Okay, but then the Quran is not like any other book. So there is an adab which has to be instilled. Again, slowly you have to introduce these things. If they see you do it, naturally they will copy you. the way you read, where you sit, how you sit, they will copy you. Otherwise, it should be spelled out to them. If you have a big enough house or even have a corner, we say, okay, this is the musalla. Here, pray salah. Here is Quran. In this corner, the adab is different to the other parts of the house. That can help as well, because then he associates. The association itself is like coming to the masjid. Automatically behavior changes for everyone, even adults that get topis on and all sorts, right? So, but it helps instill the adab. That's what I'm trying to say. On the floor, respectful mannerisms. Okay. What else is there? Building endurance with regards to learning. The Quran is something which we want to be able to recite for long periods of time. Come Ramadan, we want to do a khatam. You have to spend so much time. But if you're not accustomed to sitting down for a long period of time, then you just can't do it. Your leg aches, your mind aches, everything aches. Same for a child. The child is like an elastic. The more you stretch, they'll be able to carry on and carry on and carry on. But that training needs to be given. So to start off with 5 minutes is good. Then slowly 10 minutes, increment, and keep on increasing. Because the more they memorize the Quran, the more they will need to sit down for. Because you can imagine how much they have to revise, right? And it's the length of time that they have to sit for that really bothers them. But if they have that endurance, it's like a marathon. You have to build up to it until it's just comfortable. It's just like a jog in a park afterwards. So, but that needs to be built from a young age. Now you see 5-year-olds, they're like spaghettis. Right? They're like this, and then you can't. So first thing is get them to sit still for at least 2 minutes, and then let them become a spaghetti. Then bring them back to sitting straight, and then you have to slowly increase that. Okay. Some children are more fidgety than others, but it has to be. There's always training involved. Listening to the Quran, I've already mentioned that has to be as part and parcel of their life now. In the car, Quran, at home, even if it's not all day, maybe breakfast time, maybe in the evening sometime, just have the Quran play. So inshallah that will, a lot of children want to, or parents want their children to recite like Mishri, for example. That's not going to happen until they keep on listening to the recitation, and then they will be able to develop. Okay. So, I think that's about it. Yep, question answers now.
On the sheet it says, listen to
Minshawi. Why specifically Minshawi and Husari? Is Husari there?
Husri, not mentioned.
Okay. 2 reciters that I would recommend, Khalil Husari and Minshawi. The reason is because their makharij, very easily you're able to pick out how they recite the letters. The tune isn't so much, but in terms of precision of pronunciation, it's crystal clear. Okay? And that's what we focus on primarily before they develop into the tunes. So in terms of understanding the makharij or having the correct makharij, these 2 reciters will be the best. We've mentioned this earlier on, combining last with beginning of the verse. Make sure that I've already mentioned that. Diet, here, last thing. Fizzy drinks is a must. Sweets are a must. Cola bottles, you name it. Everything is very, very good. No, it isn't. Everything will affect memory. Okay. More sugar, the worse. The less, the better. More wholesome food, their memory will become all the more better. It's hard work living in this world. But if you just reduce the sugar, fizzy drinks will be out the game. Forget it, full stop. Right? But reducing the sugar does really, really help in having their mind. Almond milk at night time before going to bed. These things do improve the muscle memory. Yeah. So diet does have, and walnuts. Yes, that's why it looks like a brain, isn't it? So walnuts are really, really good as well. Impact. Okay. Any questions?
In
Yeah.
terms of them sitting down, and if they don't want to, children or even us, we just don't want to sit in one place doing. So how do you like ask them or not force them so that they start detesting the Quran or everything associated with them?
Sweets. Incentives. Incentives it really helps.
Yeah, but sometimes they just don't want to do a certain amount, for example, like half a page, like when they are much older. So do you just like try to negotiate with them and like, okay, just do just one ayah, that's enough, or do you just force them to be like, no, you have to do this?
Don't worry, I'll buy the king.
Listen, it's this lifetime trauma after that.
No, see, the Quran combines both. School also combines both. Targheeb and tarheeb. Targheeb is incentives, positive reinforcement, and there's also negative reinforcement. Both are needed for human beings. Now, this is a fallacy that positive reinforcement only. Human nature is such that we are motivated by both, by positive reinforcements and negative reinforcements. So I'm not saying beat them, but there needs to be an element, okay, you're going to lose out time from your play or from this or from that, which will then say, okay, on one hand I'm getting this, and on the other hand I'm going to lose this, I might as well do it. That's one way. Other than that, if it all depends on how long you're talking about, and the age as well. That will play a factor. If they're in year 1, year 5, year 6, I won't have much expectation of how long they read for. But as they grow, yes, I will have to then instill that, no, this is half an hour is a must. Now that half an hour can be broken up to 15 minutes to 15 minutes, or 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. It all depends on what they're learning and their age. But I say, there is a point where you shouldn't feel scared to have some sort of negative reinforcement. The danda has worked in bad ways, but there has to be an element of incentives. Also, them having to lose out on something. It could be anything. It could be you losing out on your friend time. You can't go to your friend's house. Something like that. Any extreme on either side is going to be detrimental. Anything else? Yes.
I wanted to ask a question going back a few slides on Tarbiyah about the concept of kind of outsourcing Tarbiyah so that your children, when I say outsourcing, I'm talking, so classically we know about scholars that were sent by their parents to other teachers to learn from them, benefit from their manners, that kind of stuff.
How many hours you want to outsource it for?
That's the question I've got. So how do you strike that balance between your children benefiting from learning and developing and nurturing themselves through other people that you've carefully selected? That person is a good a teacher of akhlaq and adab, that kind of stuff. And weighing that up against, they need to learn from my example also, but also I'm not just passing the baton to someone else kind of thing.
In order to benefit from companionship, there has to be long term. There has to be a long duration. Sahaba became Sahaba because, of course, their long duration of companionship they had with the Prophet ﷺ. The more they had, the better they became, as we know. Classically, the scholars would go and stay with those scholars, do their khidmah and their service, and then learn from them, and come back after days, weeks, months and years. Boarding school has the same effect because they've just gone into one environment. They're constantly in the suhbah and the companionship of those teachers. Right? In the absence of that, you have school, which is the opposite effect. They go there from 9 to 3. What you're going to get is whoever you put them with, Tom, Dick and Harry. So you have to find the equivalent to that. Locally, it's going to have to be you. It's going to have to be the parents. And for the short duration, they go to the masjid or to classes.
So you don't want to